Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Intercooler podcast with me, Dan Prosser, Andrew Frankel, sitting opposite me here in our studio. This is episode 212, and we're talking about how car companies really make money.
Yes.
And actually, I just thought, is the answer to that actually finance?
It's partly that.
That's part of it, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
probably a big part of it. But the key point here is that a very important way that manufacturers do make money these days is through options and personalisation. It's become a huge thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, particularly towards the top end.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
It is enormous up at the top end. Actually, down at the sort of bottom end, the margin on a very small city car might be nothing. Or certainly very, very small. They're almost loss leaders, those sort of entry-level models.
Yeah.
Designed to get you in the showroom, get you into the mark, and hopefully you graduate over the years into more profitable models.
And there'll be a bit of profit in the finance, as you say.
Yeah.
But as you say, they are the cars that, it's what the Ford Fiesta did so well for so long, isn't it? People bought a Fiesta, loved it, and stayed with Ford for the rest of their lives.
But whether we're talking very expensive cars, very affordable cars, there is a margin on options.
Definitely.
So that's why it's become so important, and perhaps has been for a very long time, actually, for car makers. Now, you do hear interesting tales, anecdotally, don't you? Particularly of Ferrari buyers who are told that they need to spend a certain amount on optional extras, and before the dealership will accept their order, and that dealership will choose some of those optional extras. All very anecdotal. I don't know myself, but it's very illustrative of how up at that end of the market, the options and personalisation thing is a very, very important piece.
Well, I mean, I think that there are two different areas to this. There are almost three, really. There are options which, get published on websites with prices and you just choose to have them or not. Then there's sort of personalisation where you go and talk to experts from the car company and they will take you through a whole other range, a whole suite of other potential refinements that you can put on your car to make sure that it is unlike any other car of that kind out there. And then beyond even that, there's proper personalisation where, and this could be anything from, stitching your children's initials into your headrest to some bloke coming around with an axe and chopping down a tree in your garden and using that for your dashboard. And those sorts of operations where they go beyond the sort of standard options, that's where massive money
and that is a fairly recent trend, and we'll come on to those because that is a very interesting thing.
And I think that there's a reason that those things have started to evolve now, and why we'll start to see more of them, and maybe not just at the very top end of the market.
Yeah, interesting. I can see you've done some research, you've done some prep.
I've done some prep. which is really quite unlike me for this podcast.
Right. Okay.
Only because I'm going to put my glasses on and pick up a piece of paper now. Only because I wanted to pay. So I've got the when we get press cars in, they tend, or often, if we're lucky, to come with sheets like this, which tell you all the options that they have and what they cost. So I've got two here. One is a certain red and blue Ferrari 296 GTB, which we borrowed last year, and that's on this one here. And the other is a Helios orange McLaren 750S, which is the car we used to test against another 296 GTB, which wasn't Ferrari's. So, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Ferrari or McLaren? And I'm just going to call out a few things that were on these cars, and you've got to tell me what you think they cost.
And have you got the total options cost on there? You don't have to reveal it now.
If I was organised, I know what the Ferrari costs with all the options on it. What does a 296 GTB cost standard? About 240?
243, I think.
Okay, then we can do that. And I know what the individual option prices of the McLaren are, and I know what it listed new, so we could probably add that up if we could be bothered.
Okay. Let's do the Ferrari then.
Okay. So, It's just so funny. So surround view. This is where I think when you're parking it gives you sort of overhead view of the car, so you know where you're going with it.
Yeah.
Go on, what would you pay for that?
A few £100.
300 quid. Well, the 3's right. They've got the 3 right. It does begin with the 3. But it is £3,456.
Yeah.
This is quite an old list. It's probably gone up since then. 20-inch, which is the standard wheel size. So you're not getting bigger wheels, but they are forged diamond rims.
The trouble is, I know that it's going to be a ridiculous number, but I'm just trying to think what would be sort of agreeable or palatable.
Yeah.
6-7 grand?
No. Bargain. 4,508.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And while we're on the wheels, if you just want your wheel nuts to be made of, not boring, aluminium or anything like that, but titanium.
Go on.
£1,000.
Wow.
Well, 960 to be precise. Not low. Okay, so Apple CarPlay.
Now, this is hilarious because Ferrari really are geniuses, right? They get people to pay for this stuff when most other cars these days have it.
But I have to interrupt you. But they don't.
Oh.
It's my trick question.
Oh, okay.
It's standard.
Oh, well done.
Now, it used to be.
You used to have to pay a couple of grand for it, didn't you?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's do some carbon bits, okay? So this is you want your engine covers.
Yeah.
So that's not the engine cover itself. That's the bit that sort of lines the engine, I think, in carbon fibre. £4,512.
Yeah.
Okay. Carbon fibre under door cover. So what's that? A sill?
Yeah.
Want to take a guess?
A couple of grand?
4,800.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Okay. This might be the funniest of the lot. Carbon fibre khaki.
I mean, that's just a bit embarrassing. Go on. Is that a few £100?
£480. It's okay. The Fiorano Performance Pack. Well, I don't know what a Fiorano Performance Pack is.
I don't know.
Okay, but it's 25 grand if you want it.
That's not a Seto Fiorano, is it?
No. That's what. No, it might be actually. That might be it. Yeah, that's probably what it is, isn't it? Okay. Alcantara floor mats. Mats,
yes.
Not carpets. Mats that go on the carpets.
Yeah.
3,360.
£3,000.
Yes.
Mats.
Yeah. You want, because of course you would, your Ferrari shields on your front wings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. £1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
A stripe. A racing stripe.
Thousands.
How many thousands?
7.
Double it.
14 grand.
£14,400 for your racing stripe. It is beautifully done.
It should be.
It's not painted. They don't paint the car and then paint it on. It's absolutely, integral and beautiful, but it is still £14,000. So anyway, the long and the short of it, this car, which we think retails for about £240,000,
yeah,
with its options, this is the red and blue car, which you may remember seeing on the site in the autumn of last year, with options 240 up to, what do you reckon?
80, 90 grand.
So you think it's about
330 something?
£359,000, £227. We think it's got 120 grand's worth of options on it. What kind of Porsche 911 can you buy for? It's our default thing, isn't it? You always think, well, how much for a 911? Well, how much? What? So you could buy a Carrera T, a Carrera S, something like that for
maybe a GTS,
maybe a GTS for 120 grand.
That is absolutely staggering. Do you know? I reckon with that kind of option spend, given the margin on the options will be greater than on the car.
Oh, massively! I mean, unimaginably greater.
They're making more money on the options.
Maybe.
I think they probably are.
I mean, the markup on those options will be absolutely. It'll make your eyes water.
I think they make more profit on that kind of option spend than they do on the car itself. I would love to know. They're never going to tell us. I would love to know, but I reckon that might be true.
Okay.
McLaren then.
Titanium locking wheel bolts. Same
Hang on,
thing.
So how much was it? £1,000 on the 960? I think you said.
It was 960 on the Ferrari.
Yeah.
On the McLaren.
Go on.
You tell me.
800.
960.
Weird.
It's almost as if they'd looked it up.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So McLaren they do tend to do these things in packs. So there's not much you can buy individually, but so there's an upper structure carbon fibre pack which includes the exterior door upper and hinge cover and roofing gloss finish visual carbon fibre.
$4,000.
10,500. 2 podcasts ago, we were talking about a V12 Aston Martin you could buy for that money.
Yes, we were.
Wow. Gloss finish carbon fibre on your active rear spoiler. So it's not the active rear spoiler, it's just the gloss carbon finish. Yeah. £5,000. Well, hang on. So forged alloy wheel. So Ferrari wanted £4,600 for their forged alloy wheels.
Is it £4,600?
It's not.
Go on.
It's £4,500.
It's such a game, isn't it?
Yeah. You want, of course, your brake calipers to be painted liquid silver.
Yeah. What else?
What else? Well, that'll be £1,570, please.
Yeah.
It goes on. Carbon fibre paddles.
Yes.
Go on.
Of course. Two?
200?
Grand.
3,250. 360-degree park assist. So we can compare that as well, can't we? Where was that? Surround view. So Ferrari want 3,456 for surround view, and McLaren want
3,356.
3,500.
More.
And so we could go on indefinitely. But I mean,
it's very fun, isn't it?
I don't know what the markup. I'd love to know. There will be somebody who knows what the markup on this sort of stuff is.
Yeah.
But it will be hundreds of %, won't it?
Yeah. Some of them, yeah. I think carbon fibre stuff, I know it's expensive and it takes time to do it well, but they do make a killing on carbon fibre stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we sort of change the conversation a bit? We're keeping it on options, but I'm genuinely... So I think that most cars come with most of the stuff that I want it to have as standard. Whenever I get a long-termer in, I always sort of look at all the stuff that's on it. And I would always, if I was speccing this as my own car, I just wouldn't have 90% of it. So why do car manufacturers put all this stuff on cars for a start?
Well, they'll say it's so that we can properly assess the various options that are available to customers.
Yeah. Yeah, but actually what it can mean, it can stop you doing that. Because let us say, for instance, you drive a car which has air springs as an option, and it's got four-wheel steering as an option, and it's got anti-roll bars as an option. You don't know what the standard car, the everyday bread and butter car that probably most people go on, you don't actually what it's going to be like.
Well, and also if you're a punter just buying one of these cars, speccing it yourself, and you're looking at air springs, thinking, I have no idea if I want air springs on my whatever.
No.
How do you know?
Exactly.
And there'll be a little description that tells you nothing.
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to make that decision?
I guess you're in a better position now than in the past, because I guess you could come on to sites like the Intercooler and hope that you'll find someone who's written about it.
Yep.
But even then, a journalist will only drive the car that he or she is given.
Yeah.
So what you're not going to get, what they're never going to do is send two cars around, or on a launch say, well, here are two cars, one's got it, one hasn't. So you could do a back-to-back evaluation. So it's very difficult to know, isn't it?
It's very hard. I'd struggle to know if I was going to tick certain boxes.
Yeah. But the reason I think that this has become an issue these days is I think that cars have become like iPhones. And I'm afraid if you're an Android user, I'm not, but I'm sure it's the same in your world. 10 years ago, each successive iPhone was a big step. There was really a lot of functionality that the previous one didn't have in terms of the gadgets that were on it, the quality of the cameras, the memory, the battery, all that sort of stuff. And every time the new one comes out, the improvement becomes more and more marginal.
Yeah.
And I think cars are there now. I actually genuinely think most cars have most stuff on them because that's what the market demands. And so car manufacturers have been forced into doing more and more crazy stuff and trying to find ways of marketing them to make them sound sexier than they actually are and more useful than they actually are. because otherwise that's a massive profit center for them that's going to get seriously hit and hit hard. So we laugh about this stuff because I think it is quite funny. But then again, we're not the sort of people who are in a position to go and buy, a Ferrari 296 GTB and put 120 grand's worth of options onto it.
The manufacturers, they're not going to stop doing this, of course. They're only going to do more of it because a lot of customers will pay quite gladly for all this extra stuff.
Yeah, and I think increasingly because they want, and particularly if we move into the EV era, they want differentiation, don't they? They want to make, cars in terms of their engineering are going to become increasingly homogenized and similar. So they're going to want ways of making this stuff stand out. So what I want to ask you is, and I guess we might have to do this at different sort of price points. But what are, if you take all the things that have traditionally been regarded as optional extras, what are non-negotiable to you? What does a car, let me ask you, for instance, could you own a car without seat heaters? And every day, I'm talking about a daily drive.
I could.
Yeah? Is there anything that you just regard as...
Okay, if Apple CarPlay, in a modern or brand new car, if it's not an option, if it's not standard fit, I'd have it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything else?
Okay, if it wasn't even available, but you quite like the car, and I think most things CarPlay is available now, but that's a recent development, would it stop you buying the car, or would it be a sizable incentive to not have the car?
It would be annoying. If it's my everyday car, it would bother me.
Yeah.
If it's a toy car, less of an issue.
Yeah. No, we're talking about
everyday
daily drivers.
I think if I really loved the car, it wouldn't be enough to put me off.
Okay.
But
even if it had a really clunky navigation system, or you had to get one of those brackets to put your telephone in.
I think I could live with it if I really wanted the car.
Okay.
But yeah, CarPlay would be an important one. Honestly, there isn't that much other stuff that I would really need.
Cruise control. Would you pay for cruise control?
I don't use cruise control, no.
So you're driving through the night to the south of France. There's nothing on the autostrada, auto route, and you're sat there at 81 miles an hour. Your foot's doing the work, is it?
Well, that's a different scenario because on the auto routes, I do use cruise control, but it's so rare.
It's so rare, yeah. Okay, but if you were driving to, we're in a studio in Bristol at the moment, but so if you were driving to London, you wouldn't.
I don't use it because our motorways are too busy, and I just find it really annoying being on and off it, even with radar cruise, because it doesn't pick up the speed quickly enough when the lane clears. I get annoyed with it, so I just do it myself.
Okay, so now, you lucky chap, you're going to get to spec your own brand new Porsche 911.
Ooh, good.
Okay. So it's a stock
I've
car.
done well.
You've done very well. Well done, you. Okay. So it's a stock car.
Yeah.
It's we make it a T so you can have it manual if you like. Okay.
I'd like that.
Okay, so it's a T. So it's I'm presuming you'd have it manual.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. What options would you have on it? So, for instance, you now do have PASM Porsche active suspension management. So you've got adaptive dampers on it. Would you go for the active anti-roll bars too?
No.
Does
it come with a diff, the T? Or is it an option?
Does come with a diff.
Okay, so
if it didn't, you'd spend a four-figure, because it would be a four-figure sum.
It would be a four-figure sum.
You'd spend a four-figure sum getting a diff. See, I wouldn't.
So I've only ever spec'd one car, my Alpine, one brand new car, right? And
I don't imagine the options list that was very long, was it?
It was very, very brief. Yeah. But I could pay extra for bigger forged wheels.
Yeah.
They're lighter.
Yeah.
And I did. Yeah. I paid extra for the bigger...
Was that for dynamic or visual reasons, or both?
Visual reasons, really.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's because I wanted the bigger brakes.
Yeah.
The uprated brakes. And I think you had to have the bigger wheels.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was the other way around. I don't know. I can't remember. But I wanted both anyway. So I added those.
Yeah.
So I only added things that would improve the driving experience. So I didn't add extra badges like you can do. I didn't add a metal passenger footrest thing.
Yeah.
There are so many different sort of accoutrements that I didn't bother with. So mine was actually a very decontented car. Yeah. Apart from the stuff that made a difference to how it drove.
So I've only ever spec'd one car from new with my own money, which was my Caterham Superlight R, which became the R400. And I had, apart from the paint, I sort of had a bumblebee, so it was black with a yellow stripe. I did three things to it. Firstly was I got them to put a mechanical oil pressure gauge in it. because I was going to use it for going around tracks. And I know how slow to respond those electronic gauges are.
To have.
Yeah, and if you're going to do that, I thought that was sensible. Oh no, so I did have a removable Momo wheel. I also I couldn't afford the dry sump engine, which is what I really wanted. But there was a thing called an AccuSump, which basically, when the oil pressure goes in a corner, it just puts more oil into the engine. The best thing I ever did, though, was I had a seat made for me. It wasn't even a seat; it was a moulding. This did 3 things: A, it made me incredibly comfortable in the car. B, it gave me an enormous amount of leg room. But the best thing about it, by far, was it meant nobody else could drive it.
Very clever.
So yes, I was very pleased with that. It was the most comfortable 7 that there's ever been.
Yeah.
But back to your 911.
Yes.
4-wheel steering.
I still don't know the answer to that, and I've driven so many with, so many without. I think I probably would.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mostly for the sort of low-speed manoeuvrability.
Yeah. I was in a Range Rover recently, a big, top-of-the-range autobiography, whatever, which comes with 4-wheel steering standard. But it deflects to an extent I've never known in any other car. I think its turning circle is not dissimilar to a Ford Fiesta's. It's absolutely ridiculous. You have to completely reprogram in your mind, because all those times in those cars, basically all the time, you think, I couldn't turn around in that space. You suddenly can.
You can, yeah.
And you can park in places you wouldn't think you even think about parking. So so for something like that, I think it's crucial. Carbon ceramic brakes.
No.
No.
I'm not going to drive my 911 Carrera T on track. I'm just not going to.
No.
I don't think.
No. Stereo upgrade.
No, I wouldn't. I do like a good stereo, but I don't listen to music that often in the car.
No.
So I don't need a thumping stereo at all.
So the car already has, as standard, because I know it does, because I looked, it's already got CarPlay and bum warmers and cruise control and all the standard stuff. That's already on it.
Yeah.
And this kind of makes my point about manufacturers having to go off and do other weirder stuff instead. Would you upgrade the interior at all? Would you go for semi-aniline leather or contrast stitching or posh dashboards or...
No. What I will say here, though, is that I think the Porsche Taycan is a good example. You'll get in a press car that's got a massive option spend on it.
Yeah.
And you'll sit in the interior and think, gosh, this is lovely. The dashboard's beautiful. The leather across here.
Yeah.
And you have to check the options list because that's extra.
Yeah.
And when you do, by chance, it's probably not a press car, sit in a Taycan that's got a Bogo dashboard, you do think, oh my God, that's a bit scratchy.
You see, I don't really.
Really?
No,
but you see the difference or feel the difference.
You do see the difference, but I notice it less. But I think that probably says more about me than the car.
So did you raise the idea of a very Bogo 911 for a reason? Is it too early to talk about your next long-term?
No, given this is when this is going out, it probably isn't.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we can talk about that, and this is the reason I happen to know quite a lot about what is and isn't standard on 911 at the moment, is that once the Artura returns to McLaren, which when you're listening to this will be, if it hasn't already, it will be imminent, it is going to be replaced by... I'm fascinated by this. So this is... We always go on with the 911 about, less is more, and that's what sort of 911 bores like me, and they always go, no, it's a purist car, and it's got to be this and the other. This is the ultimate version of less is more. So this is a 911. It's a Carrera, okay? So it's the base car. It must be the only 911 that's ever been, the only 992 that's ever been sold with less than £1,000 worth of options on it.
Yeah, it's a coupe 2-wheel drive, isn't it?
It's a coupe 2-wheel drive, white. It's got a reversing camera.
Oh, you ninny.
And it hasn't got a roof rack. It's got preparation for a roof rack, which you can't see. I don't know what that actually even means. I guess that if you're somewhere under the rails, there'll be a mounting point. And it's got something to do with the seats. It might have... They're not electric seats, but I don't know. There's something I've forgotten. There's something completely unimportant. Whatever the cheapest option seat is, it's got that. That's it. But the whole lot is less than £1,000.
But a basic Carrera, I think, is about 98 list.
97.
Okay,
list.
so it's a sub 100 grand.
It is the only sub £100,000 911 you can buy.
It's paddle shift, I guess, because you can't get a manual.
You can't get a manual
in a Carrera.
So it's PDK with paddles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't have that little wheel on the steering wheel.
No.
But it'll still have a sport mode. It'll still have a damper button. It'll still have a
so
wet mode.
It's still got adaptive dampers.
It's got all this. PASM is standard on it.
Yeah.
So it's still got all that. And I'm just sort of sitting here, and time will tell, but I'm just sitting here thinking, what am I really going to miss? What am I going to be sitting there thinking, well, I know nobody's feeling sorry for me, but am I really going to be sitting there thinking, oh, God, I wish this thing had...
If only it had
ceramic brakes or rear steering, all this other stuff. I just don't think I'm going to.
No, you won't. So it's going to be a really good experiment, isn't it?
Yeah.
To see just how much all that option spend makes a difference to the driving experience, and B, the ownership experience. Because when you don't have it, do you miss it? Good experiment. This.
I'm guessing. But the only problem with the experiment is it's very much down to the individual, isn't it? There'll be so many people who just like to think that they've got a car which is personalised more towards them, and they like to think that. I think there's an element of liking showing off the blingy bits to your mates and all that sort of thing, which couldn't interest me less, but I know it is important to some people.
Is it on 19-inch wheels? Is that the standard wheel?
I think it's on a 19 and a 20, isn't it?
Because they're pretty big still. But I wonder if it might look a little bit puny without big old wheels in there.
Again, I'm not very. I'm just so much more interested in the way these things drive than how they look.
It's interesting that you mentioned that it does have a reversing camera, because I think actually that's one of the things I really would choose to have if it wasn't standard.
Even if would you pay for a reversing camera even if there were reversing sensors as standard already? I wouldn't.
No, because good reversing sensors are fine.
Yeah, as long as they're good reversing sensors. Yeah.
My little Up GTI has got a reversing camera, and it's got a tiny little digital display that the feed appears on.
That's all you need, isn't it?
But it's got a reversing camera. You don't need it in that car, is my point.
No,
it's such a tiny blunt head.
It's got such a vertical back to it, hasn't it?
And you can spot where that is.
But in a 911, where you got that very sloping,
that's difficult to judge
backside, which you can't see at all. Yeah.
So some cars, maybe I would, but no, I do agree that normally parking sensors are adequate.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I can't wait to read more about this 911 and have a go, of course. Now, we did mention that manufacturers have taken this options thing to the next level.
Yeah.
With, I suppose you can call them their bespoke departments. Most of them have them. Jaguar Land Rover has special vehicle operations.
Yes. Aston Martin has
Q. Good name, that, by the way. Bentley has Mulliner.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've missed out some other ones.
Well, what do Ferrari calls them? They have their...
I don't know.
I do know. The name will come to me.
Is it Atelier? Does Bugatti use Atelier? Someone does. I can't remember.
It'll come to me. Yeah.
But I don't think Porsche has a specific department, does it?
I don't know. Not that I'm aware of.
That'll happen.
Yeah. I know, but I mean, but Porsche does do enormous business in accessories, and things like that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
these departments allow buyers a far greater degree of flexibility when it comes to personalisation.
Yeah.
So unique colours, metal finishes, leathers, all sorts of stuff. And as you said, you can have your family crest embossed into the headrest or whatever.
Yeah.
But there are levels here, and as an example, I want to talk about Mulliner. And I was looking at Bentley's website yesterday, and it says Mulliner operates today as Bentley's personal commissioning division.
Yeah.
From special features and finishes
Yeah.
to entirely new coach-built vehicles.
Yeah, they've been doing that for years.
The Mulliner name continues to represent the ultimate in Bentley luxury. So through Mulliner, you can have stitching to match your curtains at home, or you can have them build a one-off car. Yeah,
as indeed the Queen did in 2000 and whenever it was 2000. The state limousine is now a Bentley, and it's not like any other car in the world. And they do, and they will do that.
Yeah,
Ferrari do it. We know Ferrari.
Rolls-Royce will do it.
Aston Martin did it with the Victor.
Yeah,
which I think was £4 million.
Yeah, so it's good business for them.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
There are 3 levels at Mulliner. There's Curated by Mulliner, which is a selection of colours, materials and features recommended by them. So you're sort of picking and choosing there, I think. There's Mulliner Bespoke, which offers more freedom and personalisation. And then Mulliner Coach Built, where you can have a one-off car designed and built just for you. So they go to really great lengths, these manufacturers, to essentially wring more money out of their customers.
Yeah,
and why not?
But actually, when I was talking to some of the people at Aston Martin about, the Valor,
Yeah,
the V12 twin turbo manual, very limited numbers car that they are doing, and I was talking to some of the designers about, what's the process and that sort of thing. What do customers typically ask for? And it is, my understanding, some come in and go, I want this, I want this, I want this, and they're very sure of themselves. And that's what they get. Others come in and go, I literally haven't got a clue. What do you suggest? And then the designers come up with this and sort of talk to them, and then it becomes an iterative process. Most of them, however, come with ideas of what they want, but they're not fully formed. So they work with the designers, and it takes a form over a period of time, then they get the result that they want. And actually, I'd find that quite appealing. Even though I sat here and said, I'm not interested in the way the cars look, I'm only interested in the way they drive. But actually, the idea of creating a car that was just me.
Your own.
My own, in every way. Whether I would spend bazillions doing it, but, my terms of reference are not theirs, and to them it's probably not a lot of money, so why wouldn't you? And I do quite like the idea of, I wouldn't be bothered by, because I know a lot of people are, and they say to these companies, this is the specification I want. Oh, and one more thing, I want you to guarantee that this specification will never become available to anybody else. So my car, I want you to guarantee that my car is unique. I couldn't care less about that. But the idea of just going through a car very carefully I would love the process of working with that level of professional as well, seeing how they work, getting in their heads, allowing them to show me the limitations of my own imagination and all the stuff that I've not been thinking of. I think just as a process, as much as the result, I would really enjoy that. So I do kind of quite understand that.
That's right. That's absolutely true. But we come at it. We've both only ever spec'd one car, right? So if we did get lucky, I know. If we got lucky and we did get to spec a brand new Porsche 911, we'd both probably take quite a lot of pleasure from choosing the colour, maybe sitting in the dealership and holding up the samples in the lights.
Yes.
Choosing, I don't think either of us would go mad, but we'd enjoy choosing the colour and maybe a wheel finish or something, in interior trim or stitching colour. There'd be enough there to keep us interested, because it's the first time, really.
Yeah.
But when you've done that a dozen times or hundreds of times already, that's not a very interesting process. It probably feels like a very limiting, restrictive process.
And repetitive as well.
And repetitive.
Yeah.
And so you want more. You want to work with a designer. You want to do stuff that no one else can do. You want to come up with stuff that is bespoke and unique. I understand. I totally understand. And this is essentially what my wife does.
Yes, of course.
She does this for Singer.
Yeah.
So she heads up a team. If you buy a Singer restoration, you will spec it with her or her team. And if you want unique, bespoke content, it'll be her team that oversees delivering it.
Yeah.
And they've done some amazing things. There's not a lot in the public domain. And I know a bit more than I should, maybe, so I won't say much. But there is one thing in the public domain, which was a customer of the DLS wanted a glass roof. You imagine going to most other car makers and say, I love your car, but it needs to have a glass roof, an entirely glass roof, not a sunroof, an entirely glass roof.
Yeah.
And he wanted a glass roof, and they came up with a polycarbonate thing. It was an enormous amount of work, because that's significant body re-engineering going on there.
Absolutely.
And inevitably, the bloke had to pay a fortune for it, and Singer did well out of it. The client's delighted.
But do you think of the level of testing that would have to go through to make sure that it was durable and
and it's not going to fade or whatever in the Middle East sun or
exactly.
whatever else.
Yeah.
So it's a huge amount of
And
work.
it's not going to shatter into a million pieces if you bin the car or turn it over or whatever.
But the client's delighted. He's got a unique car. He's not too concerned about the money because it's fairly immaterial to him. Yeah. So,
but singers are. I think that they're known obviously for their amazing engineering, but I think they're just as well known for the quality of their interiors. I think they absolutely show, even in quite a small car like a 911, the scope of what can be achieved. And you and I know both at things like the Festival of Speed just gone on and sort of gawped at these things and just thought that they were amazing.
So I know firsthand how important that side of it is to the Singer business.
Yeah.
And it is to all sorts of luxury car makers. You hinted at it earlier, I think, didn't you? Are we going to see a version of this in the sort of real world where you and I live?
I think it has to become more common because, I think that margins are going to be forever squeezed and, there's just a lot less scope when you're using off-the-shelf batteries and off-the-shelf electric motors for cars to become characterful. And that's the desperate thing we want, isn't it, with EVs? We want them to be characterful. And I think there is increasing acceptance that their character is probably not going to be derived from the way that they drive so much. So it's got to come from somewhere else. And as you said, speccing, just putting the same old routine off-the-peg options onto these cars does become repetitive and boring. And after a bit, you realise that most of them are just meaningless gimmicks. So I think that ultimately there probably will have to be a process where people can at least be made to feel like they have been part of that process and that there is an interactive process going through. It's also, the other thing is that, with EV servicing requirements being so minimal, car manufacturers are desperately looking at ways to relate to and to interact with their customers because it's going away, and to build relationships because they know that, irrespective of the quality of their cars, people want to feel that they are being listened to when they're spending that amount of money, and that it's, and that the manufacturer appreciates their attention and their business and everything else. And I think one way they can do that is by at least creating the impression that people can go out there and curate cars for themselves. How it works at scale, I'm not intelligent enough or knowledgeable enough to know.
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
When these cars are coming off the line every 60 seconds, how do you apply anything unique to that car?
Exactly. Yeah.
It would have to be after the fact, probably.
And I don't think it's ever going to be, at, Ford Fiesta level.
No.
But I can see a wider proliferation of this sort of stuff coming because I think it's going to have to, because I think it becomes crucial if you're selling cars as recreations, as purchases that are as emotional as they are objective, then you've got to find a way of replacing what's being lost at the moment. And I don't really see that there are many other alternatives out there.
No. It's an interesting world, and as we've said, it's only going to happen more. I think we will see a version of it in the mass market, as you say, perhaps not at what used to be the Fiesta level. But it's a way that car makers can consistently and reliably make money, because goodness knows it's a struggle for them at the moment, particularly, unless you have a whopping margin on a very expensive car. They're not having a good time, are they? No. And it's very uncertain for them at the moment. So any little thing that they have to cling on to, I'm sure they're going to do.
If I was a car manufacturer, I'd be really, really looking hard at that.
Yeah.
And not just because you think of, there's good margin on this stuff, but because actually I think as important is it allows you to communicate with your customer.
Yeah. And create that brand loyalty.
Yeah, rather than just, sitting, in your undies in your front room with your computer just looking at the options list going tick, 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 bang, and it just going off and you collect. I think it's going to be really, really important.
It's a fairly unsatisfactory process, that.
Well, it's convenient. Yeah. It's what people love. But there's no heart and soul to it at all, is there?
And when buying this car is a big deal to you, maybe you've been hoping and dreaming of doing it for a long time.
That's exactly it. Car manufacturers have to realise and appreciate that, doing this stuff is a big deal to people. And they do want to feel that their thoughts and their opinions have been taken into account, that they have influenced the process. And even if it's maybe in some small way, people could be just, one thing on the car which makes you think, there's not one out there.
Mine. Yeah.
That's mine. And there isn't another one like it.
Oh, do you know, I think Mini has done a little bit of this. The technology has made it possible. 3D printing. You can I think you can choose some kind of custom insert for your dashboard or something.
There you go.
But that's it,
isn't it? It's going to be that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do remember that actually. So it's happening at that level already, but we're going to see more and more of it.
Yeah.
And actually the final thing to say about this is it's so easy to spend a fortune on options on any car. You don't get that option spend back when you come to sell the car.
A fraction of it.
That's
it. And it depends massively on how much you spend, what those options are. You can't say, oh, yeah, you'll only ever get 20% back. But you should regard the money as essentially gone, shouldn't you?
Yeah. So it's not a fiscally sensible thing to do. You're not protecting the resale value of your car.
No, there are certain options which do help. I'm trying to think of one now.
But I think most of them are standard fit now.
Yeah.
Like CarPlay would be a good option, a good example, except that mostly cars have it.
Yeah. Okay, I wonder if you had something like a GT3 RS, would it be... I think the car would be more saleable. I don't know whether it would be worth more, but I think it would certainly be more easily saleable if it had ceramic brakes on it.
Yeah, yeah.
A car like that, which isn't standard on that car. But it's that sort of thing. So there will be one or two things that, might help. But generally speaking, if you decide to have your titanium wheel bolts and you decide to have your carbon engine cover and your $3,000 Alcantara mats, it's gone.
Don't be upset.
It's fine.
Yeah, when it doesn't come back to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. And we often see, I think a few weeks ago, we spoke about Ferrari 296 GTB values.
Yes.
And we found a car that was up for sale. I think it was a delivery mileage car, £225,000, if I recall. So you look at that and think, well, it's dropped 20 grand from list price. Except that.
It was a 300 grand car, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's come down quite a long way, actually.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, it's a fascinating world.
Yeah.
Options and personalisation. Maybe one day we'll get to be a part of it. Don't hold your breath.
No.
All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you are on YouTube, thanks for listening. If you're listening to this just as an audio podcast, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, or to subscribe or follow to the Intercooler on whichever podcast app you're using. It's important. Really, honestly, please do it. It helps us enormously. But it also means you won't miss an episode of the podcast. So please do that. And in return, we'll keep doing this and we'll be back next week.
See you next week. Bye.